There was once a woman whose family called her the heart of the home. Whenever someone was tired, they called her. Whenever someone was angry, they blamed her. Whenever someone needed comfort, she listened. Whenever someone needed forgiveness, she gave it. Whenever peace had to be restored, she was expected to restore it. Everyone said she was a wonderful daughter. Later, everyone said she was a wonderful wife. But one night, she stood alone in front of a mirror and noticed something frightening. She could not remember the last time anyone had asked her what she needed. Even worse, she could not remember what she needed. She knew everyone's favorite meal. She knew everyone's moods. She knew which words would upset her husband. She knew which dreams would disappoint her parents. She knew when to remain silent, when to apologize, when to smile, and when to pretend that nothing had hurt her. But she no longer knew herself. The woman in the mirror was not selfish. She was not rebellious. She was not ungrateful. She was simply exhausted from being loved only when she required nothing. My dear sister, there is a kind of disappearance that happens without anyone leaving the house. Your body remains. Your voice can still be heard. You continue cooking, helping, caring, smiling, and fulfilling responsibilities. But slowly, the person Allah created begins to vanish beneath the person everyone expects you to be. And because people praise your sacrifice, you may not realize that you are disappearing. You may call it patience. You may call it being a good daughter. You may call it being a good wife. But sometimes what you call goodness is fear wearing religious clothing. Fear of disappointing people. Fear of being called difficult. Fear of being accused of changing. Fear that love will be withdrawn the moment you finally say, "This is hurting me." Today you need to hear something that may feel uncomfortable before it feels freeing. Allah did not create you to become invisible so that everyone else could remain comfortable. You can honor your parents without surrendering your entire identity. You can love your husband without becoming emotionally homeless. You can care for your family without treating your own soul as if it has no rights. You are not a machine built to serve. You are not a container where everyone can pour their anger. You are not the family's emergency room while your own wounds remain untreated. You are a servant of Allah before you are anyone's daughter, wife, sister, or mother. Every relationship in your life must exist beneath that truth, not above it. So let me ask you a question that may reveal more than you expect. When was the last time you made a decision because it was right, not merely because you were afraid someone would be unhappy with you? The day she realized everyone loved her absence. One of the most painful discoveries a woman can make is that some people do not love her peace. They love her lack of boundaries. They love the version of her who never says no. The version who answers every call. The version who apologizes even when she was wounded. The version who accepts harsh words and then comforts the person who spoke them. The version who cancels her plans, lowers her dreams, hides her exhaustion, and convinces herself that this is what a good woman does. Everyone may praise that version of you. They may say you are easy to live with. They may say you never cause problems. They may tell others that you are patient and obedient. But ask yourself honestly, do they love your presence? Or do they love the fact that you have learned to make yourself absent? Because there is a difference. To love your presence means they care about your heart. They notice when you are quiet. They respect your limits. They ask what you think. They value your dreams. They do not need you to shrink in order to feel powerful. But to love your absence means they prefer you without needs, without questions, without disagreement, and without a voice. You may have spent years trying to become the woman nobody could complain about. But my dear sister, people will still complain. Even when you give everything, someone may ask why you did not give more. Even when you remain silent, someone may accuse your silence of being disrespectful. Even when you carry everyone, they may become angry the day your knees become weak. That is why you cannot build your identity on human approval. Human approval is a moving target. The more you chase it, the further it moves. Today, they praise you for sacrificing your sleep. Tomorrow, they expect you to sacrifice your health. Today, they praise you for giving up one dream. Tomorrow, they question why you ever had dreams at all. There is a dangerous pattern many sincere women enter. First, you do something out of love, then people become used to it. Then they begin expecting it. Then they become offended when you cannot continue. What began as kindness becomes an obligation you never agreed to. What began as generosity becomes the minimum required to avoid criticism. This does not mean you should stop being kind. It means kindness must come from faith and choice, not from fear and emotional pressure. A good heart needs wisdom. Otherwise, people may use your mercy to keep you trapped. You are allowed to notice when your kindness is being consumed without gratitude. You are allowed to notice when you are the only person protecting the relationship. You are allowed to notice when peace exists only because you never speak about what hurts. That is not always peace. Sometimes it is emotional silence. Sometimes the house is quiet because one woman has learned to scream only inside herself. And my dear sister, you were not created to spend your life screaming where nobody can hear you. You do not have to become harsh. You do not have to become disrespectful. You do not have to expose every family weakness. But you must stop calling your disappearance a virtue. Your gentleness is valuable. Your service is honorable. Your care can be an act of worship, but only when the woman performing those acts is still alive inside them. You can serve everyone and still betray your own soul. There is a betrayal people rarely discuss. It is not the betrayal of a husband. It is not the betrayal of a friend. It is the betrayal of your own soul. It happens when your heart says, I cannot continue like this, but your mouth says, I am fine. It happens when your body is exhausted, but you feel guilty for resting. It happens when you know something is wrong, but you silence your conscience because speaking may upset the family. It happens when you abandon your values to maintain someone else's approval. Many women have been taught that sacrificing themselves is the highest form of love. But sacrifice and self-destruction are not the same. A mother may lose sleep to care for her child. A daughter may rearrange her schedule to help her parents. A wife may stand beside her husband through hardship. These sacrifices can be beautiful because love sometimes requires effort. But healthy sacrifice has meaning. It has balance. It does not require you to become less human. Self-destruction is different. Self-destruction happens when there is never an end to what you must give. When your pain is ignored. When your health is treated as unimportant. When you are expected to carry responsibilities that should be shared. When every request becomes a test of whether you are good enough. When saying no is treated like a moral failure. My dear sister, you are responsible for your soul. Your emotional health matters. Your physical health matters. Your faith matters. Your connection with Allah matters. Your education, your growth, and the gifts placed inside you matter. This does not mean every dream must come true exactly as you planned. Life requires compromise. Marriage requires cooperation. Families require patience. But compromise means two people make room for each other. It does not mean one person becomes the room while everyone else fills it. You may believe ignoring yourself makes you noble. But consider what happens after years of self-neglect. The woman who never rests becomes angry at people she loves. The woman who never speaks eventually explodes over small things. The woman who never receives care begins feeling resentful when asked to give. The woman who was taught to ignore her emotions may eventually lose the ability to connect with her own children. You cannot pour peace into a home while living in constant war within yourself. You cannot give healthy love from a place of complete emotional starvation. You cannot teach your daughters dignity while allowing them to watch you accept humiliation. Your children do not only listen to what you teach, they study what you tolerate. A daughter may hear you tell her that she is valuable, but if she watches you apologize for having basic needs, she may learn that a woman's value disappears inside marriage. A son may hear you speak about respect, but if he watches women serving while men never show gratitude, he may learn that care is something he is entitled to receive. This is why protecting your dignity is not always a private matter. It can become a lesson for the entire generation growing around you. Do not betray your soul to preserve an image. Do not destroy yourself so people can call the family perfect. A perfect-looking home can contain a woman who cries in the bathroom because it is the only room where nobody asks anything from her. Your pain does not become meaningless simply because nobody sees it. Allah sees what people overlook. But remember this carefully. Knowing that Allah sees you does not mean you must remain in every harmful situation without seeking change. Faith does not require you to pretend wounds do not exist. Faith gives you the courage to face them truthfully. Not every silence is patience. Some silence is fear. There is a silence that comes from strength, and there is a silence that comes from fear. The silence of strength chooses the right time to speak. It refuses useless arguments. It protects dignity. It does not react to every insult. But the silence of fear believes, if I speak, I will lose love. The silence of fear says, maybe my feelings are wrong. It says, maybe I am asking for too much. It says, perhaps I should accept this because other women have it worse. It says, people will blame me if the marriage struggles. It says, my parents will think I am ungrateful. Many women are encouraged to remain patient, but nobody asks what they are being patient with. Patience with financial hardship can be beautiful when husband and wife support each other. Patience with illness can be beautiful. Patience while building a life together can be beautiful. But patience should not be used as a word that protects cruelty from accountability. A woman is insulted and she is told to be patient. She is controlled and she is told to be patient. She is threatened and she is told to protect the family name. She is emotionally broken, and people remind her of the reward for endurance without asking the person harming her to change. That is not justice. You cannot place every burden of family peace on the person who is being wounded. Sometimes the most patient thing you can do is speak clearly before resentment destroys your heart. Sometimes patience means seeking help instead of pretending. Sometimes patience means refusing to answer anger with anger while still saying, you may not speak to me this way. Sometimes patience means giving a relationship the opportunity to become healthier by bringing hidden problems into the light. And sometimes, when there is real abuse, danger, or repeated cruelty, patience means taking safe and wise steps to protect yourself. Silence does not automatically make you righteous. Speaking does not automatically make you rebellious. The question is not simply whether you speak. The question is why, how, and for what purpose. Speak to repair, not to humiliate. Speak with dignity, not revenge. Speak after thinking, not merely reacting. But speak. Your heart cannot survive forever in a room where every truth is forbidden. You may be afraid that people will misunderstand you. They may. You may be afraid that relatives will take sides. Some may. You may be afraid that your husband will say you have changed. Perhaps you have changed. Perhaps you have finally understood that love cannot grow where honesty is punished. Perhaps you are no longer willing to call emotional neglect a normal marriage. Perhaps you have realized that being a daughter does not mean remaining a child forever. There comes a time when a woman must stop asking permission to have a human experience. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to feel hurt. You are allowed to disagree respectfully. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to seek counseling. You are allowed to tell trusted people that you need help. You are allowed to say that something is not acceptable. And if you are facing threats, violence, forced isolation, financial control, or serious emotional abuse, do not carry it alone. Reach out to trustworthy relatives, qualified counselors, responsible religious leaders, local support services, or legal protection where necessary. Your safety is not a family embarrassment. The wrongdoing is their embarrassment, not the fact that you needed help. A home is not safe by one woman dying inside it. Some women are taught that the entire emotional future of the family rests on their shoulders. If the home is peaceful, she is praised. If the home is tense, she is blamed. If the children struggle, people question her motherhood. If the husband is distant, people ask what she failed to provide. If relatives are upset, she is expected to repair every connection. My dear sister, a home is a shared responsibility. A marriage cannot be carried by one heart. One person cannot communicate for two people. One person cannot apologize for two people. One person cannot create emotional safety while the other creates fear. One person cannot keep giving respect while receiving contempt and still call it a partnership. You may have been trying to save a marriage by becoming smaller. You stopped discussing your needs You stopped visiting people you loved. You gave up interests that made you feel alive. You accepted decisions without consultation. You convinced yourself that avoiding conflict was the same as building peace. But every time you abandoned yourself, the marriage did not necessarily become stronger. It may only have become more dependent on your silence. A healthy home does not require a woman to erase her personality. Your husband did not marry a shadow. He married a human being with thoughts, emotions, strengths, weaknesses, hopes, and fears. Marriage should refine both people. It should teach mercy, responsibility, humility, and cooperation. It should not make one person powerful and the other person afraid. You can be a loving wife and still say, I need your support. You can be respectful and still say, this decision affects me and my opinion matters. You can care deeply for your marriage and still refuse humiliation. You can forgive and still require change. Forgiveness does not mean reopening the door to the same behavior without accountability. Forgiveness cleans poison from your heart. Trust is rebuilt through consistent actions. Do not confuse the two. A person may say sorry because they fear consequences. Real change appears in how they behave after the apology. You are not asking for perfection. You are asking for responsibility. You are not demanding a life without hardship. You are asking not to be alone inside the hardship. A good husband is not threatened by his wife's growth. He does not fear her education. He does not mock her emotions. He does not require her weakness to prove his strength. He understands that leadership is not domination. It is responsibility before Allah. And a good wife does not destroy her husband's dignity either. She does not weaponize his weaknesses. She does not compare him constantly. She does not use public humiliation to win private arguments. Both are accountable. Both must learn. Both must grow. This is not a message telling women they are always right. It is a message reminding women that they are fully human. You can make mistakes and still deserve respect. You can need correction and still deserve gentleness. You can be imperfect without becoming a target. Do not accept the lie that because you have weaknesses, you must tolerate someone else's cruelty. Every human being has weaknesses. That never makes oppression acceptable. A home is not saved when the woman inside it loses her light. That home may remain standing, but something sacred has already collapsed. The good daughter becomes the invisible wife. Before some women disappear in marriage, they first learn to disappear as daughters. They grow up believing that love must be earned through obedience without question. They become the child who never causes trouble. They study what their parents want. They dress how the family wants. They choose friendships the family approves. They hide opinions that may create disagreement. They become experts at reading the room. They know when their father is angry before he speaks. They know when their mother is disappointed from the movement of her eyes. They learn to adjust themselves before anyone asks. Everyone calls them mature, but sometimes they are not mature. They are anxious. They have learned that, but Allah never will. Allah listens with perfect knowledge. Allah responds with perfect wisdom. Allah gives with perfect timing. And Allah loves when His servants turn to Him. My dear sister, sometimes Allah allows difficulties in your life because He wants to bring you closer to Him. He wants you to raise your hands in dua. He wants you to return to Him with sincerity. He wants you to experience the sweetness of relying upon Him. If every problem disappeared immediately, many people would forget Allah during times of ease. But hardship has a way of bringing hearts back to their Creator. And sometimes the very trial you are complaining about is the reason Allah is drawing you nearer to Him. What a beautiful mercy that is. The thing you see as a burden may actually be a bridge between your heart and Allah, a bridge between your weakness and His strength, a bridge between your tears and His mercy. My dear sister, the next time your heart feels overwhelmed, do something different. Before calling someone, before posting about your struggles, before telling the world what happened, find a quiet place, raise your hands, speak to Allah, tell Him everything, tell Him what hurts, tell Him what scares you, tell Him what keeps you awake at night, tell Him what nobody else understands, because Allah is not only listening, Allah is already preparing the answer. And sometimes the greatest relief comes not when the problem disappears, but when your heart learns that Allah is enough. When Allah becomes your first refuge instead of your last option, everything changes. Your patience becomes stronger, your faith becomes deeper, your heart becomes calmer, and your relationship with Allah becomes more beautiful than it has ever been before. 4. The powerful peace that comes from silence, my dear sister. We live in a world that constantly encourages people to speak. Speak about your feelings, speak about your problems, speak about your frustrations, speak about what happened, speak about what someone did to you, speak about every disappointment, speak about every hardship. And while there are times when speaking is necessary, there is a wisdom that many people have forgotten. Sometimes silence protects your peace better than words ever can. One of the greatest gifts Allah can give a believer is the ability to remain silent when speaking would bring no benefit. Not every thought needs to be expressed. Not every emotion needs to be announced. Not every wound needs an audience. And not every struggle needs an explanation. Many people think silence is weakness. They believe that if they do not defend themselves, explain themselves, or constantly tell their side of the story, they will somehow lose. But true strength is often found in knowing when not to speak. The strongest people are not always the loudest. The wisest people are not always the most talkative. And the most peaceful hearts are often the ones that have learned the power of silence. My dear sister, think about how many problems begin with words. A person says something they should not have said. Someone shares information that should have remained private. Someone speaks while angry. Someone reveals too much about their personal life. Someone complains to the wrong person. And suddenly, a small problem becomes a large one. Many of the regrets people carry today came from words they wish they could take back. Very few people lose sleep because they remained silent. But countless people lose sleep because they spoke too much. This is why silence is often a protection from future regret. Every unnecessary word carries a risk. Every unnecessary explanation carries a risk. Every unnecessary complaint carries a risk. Silence removes many of those risks completely. My dear sisters, one of the most exhausting habits is constantly trying to make everyone understand you. Trying to explain your intentions. Trying to explain your choices. Trying to explain your decisions. Trying to explain your pain. Trying to explain your heart. But here is a difficult truth. Not everyone wants to understand you. Some people have already made up their minds. Some people will judge you no matter what you say. Some people will misunderstand you no matter how clearly you explain yourself. And some people are committed to seeing you in the worst possible light. So why exhaust yourself trying to convince people who have no desire to understand? There comes a point where peace is found not in explaining yourself better. Peace is found in letting Allah handle what people think. The moment you stop chasing everyone's approval, your heart becomes lighter. The moment you stop needing everyone to understand your story, your mind becomes calmer. The moment you stop defending yourself to every critic, your soul begins to breathe again. My dear sister, silence also strengthens your relationship with Allah. Because when you stop pouring all your emotions into people, you begin pouring them into dua. When you stop running to everyone with your complaints, you begin running to Allah. When you stop seeking validation from the creation, you begin seeking comfort from the Creator. And that changes everything. Many people know how to talk to others about their problems. Very few know how to talk to Allah about them. Yet Allah is the one who can actually change the situation. Allah is the one who controls every heart. Allah is the one who opens closed doors. Allah is the one who removes burdens. Allah is the one who turns pain into healing. Why then should people become our first refuge while Allah becomes our last? My dear sister, there is a special peace that enters the heart when you learn to keep certain struggles between yourself and Allah. Nobody knows the tears you cried during tahajjud. Nobody knows the dua you whispered after prayer. Nobody knows the battles you fought in private. But Allah knows, and that knowledge alone is enough. You do not need everyone to know what you are carrying. You do not need everyone to know what you survived. You do not need everyone to know what you are praying for. Sometimes the most beautiful blessings grow in silence. A seed grows in silence beneath the soil before anyone sees it. Likewise, Allah often develops strength, patience, wisdom, and faith inside a believer long before anyone notices. Silence allows that growth to happen. My dear sister, there is another hidden power in silence. Silence protects your dignity. The more people know about your private struggles, the more opportunities they have to form opinions about your life. The more information you give away, the more control you give away. But when you learn to be selective with your words, you protect your dignity. You protect your emotional well-being. You protect your peace. This does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean isolating yourself. It does not mean refusing help when you genuinely need it. It simply means learning wisdom. Learning that not every person deserves access to every chapter of your life. Learning that some conversations belong only between you and Allah. Learning that silence can sometimes solve problems that words only make worse. My dear sister, one of the signs of emotional maturity is no longer feeling the need to explain everything. You stop explaining your growth. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop explaining your decisions. You stop explaining your healing. Instead, you focus on pleasing Allah, because when Allah is pleased with you, the opinions of people become much smaller. And when your heart becomes attached to Allah, you no longer feel the same desperate need to be understood by everyone. That is freedom. That is peace. That is strength. The world teaches you to tell everyone everything, but wisdom teaches you that some things are too valuable to share carelessly.